Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about the brand new movie Civil War, and I was really excited to go into this movie mainly because of Kirsten Dunst, who is one of the leads of the movie. I was a big fan of her. I'm a big fan of her work, especially her earlier work. I feel like she's a very underrated actor, and so I really love her. I was introduced to her being a comic book fan. I was introduced to her my first time when Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire did their Spider-Man, the very first one, all the way back in 2002, I think it was. That was when I was first introduced to her. I was really young then, only 12 years old, and I just fell right in love with that actor, and I watched a whole bunch of her work afterwards, and I really think that Kirsten is a really underrated actor, and she's the reason why I wanted to see Civil War. It looked like this really cool, action-packed adventure, all about journalism in this war, and she was going to be the lead. She was probably going to be, say, the press, or the sort of the neutral side, trying to investigate everything that's going on here in this movie during this Civil War, which seems to take place sometime in the future. I feel like it's in the future. I don't know if they ever actually give you an actual date, but it did seem or appear or feel like this is something that happens in the future, not not today or not in the past, but a little bit in the future. And so that was really intriguing to me. I really wanted to see her. I really liked the idea of having it more like this journalist type of movie, kind of like this press type, almost like an investigation type movie, while it's set in this world of Civil War, especially in an American Civil War. And I just, found that so captivating, that whole idea. And that is essentially really what this movie is about. Actually, it's more of almost like an adventure. I compared it when I was talking to a friend. I was kind of comparing it almost to like Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, you had the hobbits who had to take the ring from point A to point B over the course of the trilogy, and that's sort of what this movie is. It's these group of press and these group of journalists that are trying to get from point A to point B throughout the events of the Civil War. Essentially, it's them trying to go from wherever the location was where they began, right up to Washington, D.C. They're trying to get to the president so that they can interview him, and that's the whole movie basically, is them just trying to get to the president, and then they finally do get to him at the very end of the movie. Now, this movie also starred Callie Spaney. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce the name, so I apologize if I'm butchering it, but she portrays a character named Jessie, and I did not like her character in this movie. Honestly, I actually felt like she kind of took away from Kirsten's character a little bit. Kirsten portrays a character known as Lee. She was the main journalist, the main, I guess you could say sort of the main, there's kind of like three main characters, and Jessie and Lee was one of them, and of course the other one would have been Joel, who was portrayed by Wagner Moura, who also did a phenomenal job with his role and whatnot. And I really felt like Jessie took away from Lee, honestly. I feel like they were almost conflicting. It was almost like they were trying to give us two main female leads, but neither one of them was really enough for us to connect to, and I just feel like I never really cared for Lee or Jessie. And not to mention the fact that, Jessie made a lot of decisions in this movie that I just felt like were really dumb, very stupid, so to speak. And, especially towards the end of the movie, she ends up making some decisions which has some real big gravity behind them, some real serious consequences, and I just felt like that character was not only not necessary for the movie, but almost even a little bit annoying to the movie. She's sort of like a fangirl of Lee. Lee has inspired her to want to become this journalist, and they basically agreed to take her along with this mission to try to get from point A to Washington, D.C. to try to get to interview the president. And that whole scenario to me also felt out of place. Like, I don't believe that if this was a real world thing or a real world situation, I just don't believe that someone like Jessie would have been able to just be a part of this mission so easily. I feel like there would have been a little bit more work behind it, and that's probably my biggest complaint about this movie, is that I feel like none of the characters were relatable enough for me to really care about any consequences of what might happen to any of them. In terms of the special effects and that type of thing, I thought the special effects were done really well. It did at times look very real. It did look like some parts of America really were like a dystopian American. But overall, like I said, I didn't really care for any of the characters. And even with the whole idea of them going through the Civil War, trying to get to Washington, D.C. to try to interview the president, I just felt like it was a little silly at times. It was a little wacky sometimes. And I also feel like there was a few situations, once again, end that were not really 100% believable. And I know that you're supposed to suspend reality, you know, when watching a movie. That's the whole reason why we watch movies, to forget about reality and sort of suspend our imagination. But I just felt like even in this world that it built itself, there were a few times when I was like, I don't know that this would really happen and whatnot. You know, the president was portrayed by Nick Offerman, and he really wasn't in the movie all that much, at least not towards the end of it. You know, maybe besides like you see him on the news, or maybe there's like a press conference or something like that. But I did enjoy his portrayal, I guess. I just feel like he was, once again, he was only cast, you know, just for this one single role, and I feel like he was only in this movie for the sake of the fact that you had to have a president that's, you know, sort of a part of this civil war and whatnot. Now, I did think that it was smart to have our main group of characters be journalists, because real journalists should be neutral. They shouldn't really pick either side. They shouldn't be, you know, with the government or against the government. They should be neutral, and they should be just trying to figure out the truth. So I could appreciate that. I did appreciate the fact that our main group of characters were journalists. So that was something that I think was very wise, and I do think that they made the right choice, you know, taking that perspective on this civil war, because they are neutral and all that good stuff. But beyond that, in terms of, I don't really like to give movies numbers, but I oftentimes do, just because people sometimes ask me, where would you place this? Would you say that this is like an A or an A plus, or in numbers, you know, they might say, would you think this is an 80 or a 90%? And all these things are subjective, but for me, honestly, I'd probably give Civil War like a 60%, because I did still like it more than what I didn't, but rewatchable value for me is 0. I'll never watch this movie again, and honestly, I was let down, but I did still really enjoy seeing this dystopian world. I did enjoy seeing sort of this civil war happening, you know, right here in our own backyards pretty well. I mean, I'm Canadian, but I mean, you know, Canada and America are pretty similar for the most part, at least in terms of the way we live. We sort of both adopted that Western, we are that Western culture and whatnot, and, you know, so I really, you know, it was really cool, but also kind of heart-wrenching to see something like that happen in our own backyards. But, you know, in terms of the movie, I think that I would honestly say that I was pretty disappointed with it. Even in terms of the action, when there's action, the action was done really well. It was really intense, it was really cool, but it still wasn't enough action in it for me. I felt like this movie was slow at times and really needed to be amped up a little bit. But I think that the performances did the best that they could, but I just don't think that they were really given a whole lot to work with. And like I said, Callie Spaney and her character Jessie, I really don't even know why they were in the movie. I mean, I'm happy that she was in the movie. I'm glad she got a role and she managed to get, you know, some work out of it and got a job out of it, but I really don't think that character was necessary, and really that character really only caused more problems for the quote-unquote heroes than anything else, and so I just didn't really see the need of it. I would have loved to see Kirsten Dunst sort of be the main focus for the entire movie on her own. You didn't really need a second lead, you know, and whatnot, and I feel like all the other characters played off of her very well as well, but it's just that character Jessie really irritated me through the whole movie, and all that kind of stuff. So with that being said, folks, that's my review of Civil War. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen this movie, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you liked this video, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.